Welcome to the Business of Government Hour TV, a video companion to our flagship radio program. I'm Michael Keegan, your host. Each week, government executives and thought leaders join me for an informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on the intersection of government, leadership, and technology. What is the IT strategy for the Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, WMATA? And how is WMATA using technology to improve customer experience? I'll explore these questions and so much more with Al Short, Chief Information Officer at WMATA. My co-host from IBM is John Mulkeen. Take a look and take a listen. You can download the entire interview at Podcast One, iTunes, and at businessofgovernment.org. So you kind of touched on it, but your specific responsibilities and duties, what's a week in the life of the Metro CIO?
So day to day, it varies. So as an example, today was in a safety meeting where we went over all of the most recent safety incidents and some of the applications associated with what's going on from our bus operators or train operators, safety incidents and that sort of thing, to looking at the capital program from the standpoint of what we might be doing as far as the next station's shutdown, large-scale capital investments from the repairing systems and technology associated with railroad operations, talking about human capital management and how we're doing e-performance for the authority. One of the GM's priorities is to become a employer of choice in the metropolitan area. So we're really looking for different ways that we can improve our onboarding process, how we manage our bringing applicants in. We're always hiring. We have a constant flow of staff coming through, and it's so every day usually brings 4 or 5 different opportunities to have a conversation around different sorts of areas where we need to improve things for the authority or where we need to put in place different technology solutions or how IT supports and makes things happen from a technology perspective. For the
so what are some of your top 3 management challenges that you face, and how have you sought to address those challenges?
Well, I think that first of all, just the breadth and scope of what we do from an IT perspective. So one of the things that we really tried to work on is put together a management team that focuses in on the particular areas of need from a WMATA perspective. So infrastructure and operations is a key area for us, and those are the folks that are out there supporting railroad operations. For an example, we're out there on the railroad inspecting every phone every 800 feet along the railroad, all 118 miles. We inspect every phone twice a year to make sure that they're operational and associated with that. So infrastructure and operations merge together the networking team and the data center operations team to bring together those teams together. Cybersecurity is another major focus of the authority. We really want to see it become a center of excellence. And so that was a big key area from my perspective to when I went into the marketplace to find a new CISO for the authority. Have a very focused and definitive individual in that spot who's really brought a lot of rigor to the team, redefined the entire organization, and put together a whole roadmap on how we're going to move forward from a cybersecurity perspective. And then certainly not last but not least is our application side of the house. We have all these different applications we support. I mentioned some of them before, but it also includes things like mobile applications, the website. We do internal operational technologies for what we call the Generalized Ordered Track Rights Systems, or GOTRs. And so that's about, if you think about our window of opportunity for our staff to go out on the railroad and do work associated with repairing the systems and the track beds, railroad ties, whatever it might be, they have to reserve time so that we can make sure that the operations control center has gotten the trains cleared and managed and that sort of thing. And so that's a very important part about how we manage our railroad operations and associated with making sure that the right people have the right access, and at the same time that the operators in the control room know to clear the trains out where work is being done. So it's both a safety and a security sort of thing. And if you think about it, we only have a few hours every night for somebody to go out there and turn a wrench and make a change to that railroad. So that's very key for us to really be very crisp about getting everybody out there on the railroad as quickly as possible, get the work started, and then be able to clean up and finish up before the start of service the next morning.
Well, you've sure managed a lot of complexity in your organization from an IT perspective. During your tenure, is there something that surprised you most?
I think that the operation, we find ourselves in conversations on a regular basis, and I've been there almost 3 years now, where, wow, we do that? We have that kind of a responsibility? You know, if you look at it under our compact, as an example, our Metro Transit Police Department has responsibilities across all 3 jurisdictions. They have police powers in both Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. And we have an entire police force. And it's more than just the folks that you might see out there on the railroad with the badge and that sort of thing. You have bicycle cops, you have a SWAT team, you have bomb-sniffing dogs. And so there's a whole support infrastructure that we have around that. And then from a safety management perspective, we have safety management systems that we support. So every day it's something new and different. I was found out just recently that if you lay out all of our fiber end-to-end that we support, we have 2 million miles of fiber along the right-of-ways. Another example is that the IT organization brings in something on the order of $10+ million a year in revenue for the authority through leasing of right-of-way to various carriers in the area. So, you know, if you think about all of that dedicated right-of-way we have across the DMV area, it's a very valuable resource for the authority. And as we move forward with the Silver Line Phase 2, we expect that to even be a greater benefit. As some folks might know, Ashburn, which is Virginia, which is near where our new railroad extension will be going out there, is one of the concentrators and hubs for the internet. And so there are literally tens of thousands of square feet of data center, if not hundreds of thousands of square feet of data center out there that potentially can take advantage of that right away that we have available.
So, Al, IT is critical to the success and execution of the Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, WMATA. Would you give us an overview or outline your IT priorities, your strategic vision for IT at Metro? What are they?
So I happen to have brought a page out of my strategic plan with me just so I could refer to it. But I think from our perspective, you know, the GM came in a few years ago, and his focus was, first of all, on safety. And then once we got through safety and the Safe Track effort, where we really tried to go back and repair a lot of the infrastructure that needed addressing, then he started to move toward this idea of back to good. And really that's about investing in the infrastructure and in the systems to bring us back to what we are, you know, the area would perceive us as a good provider of transit services. And so from an IT perspective, you know, we're looking at it from the standpoint of what we need to do from an infrastructure perspective from a technology perspective, where we need to go to refresh, first of all, our technology stack as we start to, you know, sort of reinvesting in the hardware and the software applications. Our existing enterprise resource planning software, ERP stack, is going to be end of life in the mid-20s. As you can imagine, for an organization of our size, 14,000 or 12,000 employees, 17,000 employees and contractors in total, that's a big lift. You know, millions of dollars in revenue that have to be managed and billions of dollars in procurements on a regular basis. And so we're trying to position ourselves for that ERP replacement. And then certainly I'm going to throw some buzzwords out, but I'll explain them. There's a lot of talk now about the intelligent Internet of Things, or IIoT, and how we need to respond to that from a standpoint of big data and analytics. And so we're looking to invest in data management solutions, and also looking to invest in a data lake enterprise decision support system, sort of taking business intelligence sort of from its traditional dashboards and certainly continue to support and put more into those, but also that next step of being able to draw inferences out of what is coming in from all these new data sources that we're putting out. Because, 20 years ago, you installed a fan in a fan shaft, and it was on, off, exhaust, or supply, right? 4 bits of information that come out of that fan. Now, you install a fan in a fan shaft, and it's going to tell you about temperature and RPMs and the number of hours, and certainly those bits of information we had before, but all kinds of other information about how it's performing. And you multiply that by the hundreds of fans, hundreds of other types of devices, literally thousands and tens of thousands of sensors. If you think about where we're going with our rolling stock, it's essentially a multiple computer systems and multiple computer networks on wheels. There's well over 80 different software components on one of our modern rail cars that are associated with running down the rail. And so we really need to establish an infrastructure to be able to process that data at the edge as appropriate, edge intelligence, bring that in and work towards supporting what we're trying to do from a maintenance perspective, really going to a reliability-centered maintenance sort of program, or RCMP, where you're based off of the performance and the characteristics of how that particular application that particular piece of technology is doing, deciding what kind of maintenance. If you think about it from the airline industry, you probably have seen the commercials from the manufacturers where they talk about, the engine on the way over from Chicago to LA sends a notification to the infrastructure to say, hey, this part is going to fail in X number of hours. So when the plane lands in LA, they have the part there so they can go ahead and repair that airplane engine. We want to be able to do the same thing with our railroad infrastructure and our bus infrastructure and those sorts of things, to be able to say, how do we preserve the investment and the dedicated funding that we've been able to successfully garner from the jurisdictions, and be able to make the best investment in that support of those technologies and those systems that are out there.
And that must require a lot of investment in infrastructure from a technology perspective. Can you discuss what you're doing in that area, modernization of the infrastructure, if you will?
The part of what we're trying to do from an infrastructure perspective is put the necessary reporting out through transparent data sets and through what's called the Generalized Transit Data Feed, data Feed Specification, GTFS. It was an open source standard that Google had originally developed for transit. And so what we are doing in that area is providing those feeds out into the community. And so, there are other folks that have developed their own apps that ingest that data, and so do the TNCs and that sort of thing, to be able to provide route and planning around our assets. But at the same time, we're also looking for providing a better connected experience for the rider. So one of the things that we completed as part of our Back to Good efforts was we now have Wi-Fi available to all of our customers in all of our stations, above ground and underground. And we're looking to go to the next level of that, of what we could potentially do from the standpoint of on board our trains and on our buses, and be able to provide that Wi-Fi experience so people would be able to leverage that as part of their experience. And coming back to this idea of ubiquitous Wi-Fi is sort of a given for a lot of folks, and they expect to be able to have that available to them from a technology perspective. But also, if we take a step back and talk about the back-end infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
Putting in place tools and technology for our staff so that they can be better effective. We're working on a project that we call Metro Docs, where we're going to put handheld devices into our workers' hands such that they can look at the latest version of that specification or that policy document or whatever, and be able to make sure that when we send out a new, let's say, new safety instruction, that they affirmatively respond, they've read it because they now have that latest version. They don't have to go searching for that information. We're trying to provide other tools and technologies into the hands of those workers that, for example, flexibility and interaction with our work order system. So someone can take a picture of a cracked rail and send that back as part of that work order so that the person who's going to come out and do that repair has that picture and that sort of thing. We're investing in our GIS systems and our applications. We have mapped all of our assets, above ground and underground, into our asset management system. So you can literally, on a map, pull up in a GIS map and say, show me all the assets that are associated with this particular rail station. You can get a list view of everything that's there. And so I want to show me on the map where fan shaft XYZ is in station, JO3.
Yeah, sure.
And we can zoom in on that map and show you on that application where that's at.
So there's some changes coming to WMATA. You're moving your headquarters and you're consolidating facilities, and I think part of that's a data center consolidation. Can you touch on that?
So first of all, we're really looking forward to this opportunity to move into our new headquarters facilities. And so what we're really looking to do is establish 3 facilities that are going to be coming back to this employer of choice, really a modern office environment. The current building that we're in, the Jackson Graham building in downtown D.C., as an example, that is part of that original infrastructure build out of the authority from the mid '70s, and so it's due for some work, and so we think that.
That's a nice way to put it.
Well, we have this opportunity to move into these new facilities, and so we're looking to vacate the Jackson Graham building eventually over time and move into a headquarters that will be in LaFont, and then both new facilities in Virginia and DC, or in Maryland, also associated with moving our staff and trying to consolidate. So we have folks spread out all over the DMV area and to try to bring them together. But coming back to the data center question, so if you think about the sort of infrastructure that was used to support the original railroad, there was a lot of infrastructure that was brought into the Jackson Graham building. So it's a natural location for a data center and what we call a central office. If you think about from the old telephony days, a central office sort of functionality. All of our fiber comes in to that location. And so we're looking to establish a new facility in Northern Virginia to replace that, a modern, state-of-the-art data center sort of infrastructure, and we want to have redundancy between that and our other data center facility because although we are certainly focused on all the different modern technologies that are out there, cloud or whatever it might be, we have this very important physical infrastructure we need to support. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to say, oh, gee, our cloud email system may not be available for a few hours because, we've lost connectivity to a provider or whatever. Mm-hmm. But really can't have that conversation about a railroad operational control system. We need to be able to run that 24/7, 365.
I've talked to a lot of CIOs, both in the federal space and in municipalities, and they're always talking about ERP. They're talking about they're going beyond modernization towards transformation. And I just want to get from your perspective, given what we talked about, and if you wanted to touch on your cloud migration strategy and where you are there, that'd be great. But from your perspective, why is it important to go beyond modernization to transformation? And where I'm going with this is creating an environment that is both flexible and scalable. And I think you hinted at it a little bit with the digital technologies, the IOCT. So where are you there?
So One of the things that we've been working toward is the establishment of a digital technology governance advisory board. And it's a lot of words. Yes. But we were very deliberate in our choice of digital technology rather than saying information technology because, all of our assets are becoming digitized. If you think about our escalators, right? There are programmable logic controllers, PLCs, that are associated with running that. There is actually an elevator and escalator operation center where they get reporting about all these devices out there. Fun fact, the largest escalator fleet in North America is run by WMATA. So
there you go.
There you
It's
go.
the highest too, no?
Yeah.
I mean, it's in terms of
vertical distance, yes. Quite, but coming back to your question is, so as we see it, there is these series of technologies that are being deployed on the railroad, all these intelligent devices, and we really need to be able to interact with those, support those, and provide the tools and technologies that our management and our workers need to be able to manage and support what's going on, whether you're talking about buses or metro transit vehicles or MTP, PD police officers, whatever they're doing. And so we try to look at each investment from the standpoint of what makes the best sense from the balancing not only this wonderful capital stream that we have available to us, which kind of influences our investment strategy from the standpoint of operational monies versus capital monies. And so we haven't talked about this, but one of the things that the authority, in response to this wonderful opportunity coming to us from a capital perspective, we have what's called a 3% challenge. And so the authority is trying to maintain our operating expense growth to only 3% per annum. This is on an organization that typically would increase by 7 to 8% per year. And so we'll take a look at investment decisions and how we can do things to say, how can we invest to reduce our operating expenses? And that goes to not only from a technology perspective, but efficiencies that we could potentially gain. And so whereas a more traditional organization who's more funded from an operating side may say, oh, well, cloud computing, I can just pay by the drink. Well, that may be appropriate from the standpoint of that operating spend sort of situation, but when you start to talk about, oh, I'm trying to maintain a 3% growth cap, maybe we want to invest in physical infrastructure ourselves that allow us to then keep the costs on our side and reduce that maintenance investment. So transformation. I didn't want to lose sight of that sort of higher level conversation. So when we talk about where the transit industry is going, is really about trying to take advantage of big data and analytics to be able to make better business decisions, understanding your ridership, understanding what your customers are doing, and then try to provide services and functions that better meet where they want to be and what they want to do. We have, as we said, about 1 million trips a day in Metro across all of our different modes of transportation. But at the same time, there's pressures on that. Whether it's people wanting to work from home, teleworking, those sorts of things. That certainly had an impact. If you ride the Metro system, you can certainly see the difference between Mondays and Tuesdays, right, or Thursdays from Fridays, just because of that teleworking population. And if we're trying to really become this transit provider of choice, we need to be able to have good intelligence about our ridership, what they're doing, how they're doing, providing them the fare products and the tools that really allow them to take best advantage of what we have to offer. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to be able to provide safe, reliable, consistent transportation. And one of the ways that you enable that is through technology.
Yeah. You know, Al, you mentioned earlier about the importance of the customer experience, and it's the whole transit life cycle, if you will. What other enhancements are you looking at on the horizon that would improve the customer experience?
Well, I think that one key item that we're working on that we have already talked a little bit about in the marketplace is a mobile app for our customers. And I'm sure that some of the audience is probably going, oh, gee, another mobile app. But really what we're trying to do is provide something of real value to the customer with that. And what we're talking about now is instead of you having to have the Smart Trip card, you will have an application on your phone that will be able to put you through the fare gates. You'll be able to add money to it. It'll be eventually hooked into your smart benefits and your transit benefits, and you'll be able to use that on our system. So you'll be able to plan your trip and pay for your trip with that mobile app. And so we think that is a game changer from our perspective.
Yeah, please.
You'll be able to walk up to a fare gate and put your phone on that target and be able to go through. And speaking of fare gates, we're in the process of going to be rolling out new fare gates across the system. So that'll be something in a couple of years that you'll start to see those rolling out. Obviously, the Silver Line Phase 2, when it comes online, that's going to be a big extension of our services. But it's coming back to that customer experience and the whole mobile app and that sort of thing. You know, we have 20 million visitors a year in the D.C. metro area. And when you think about that, a lot of those folks, they're not going to necessarily want to go up to one of our ticket vending machines and, oh, gee, how do I navigate this interface? How do I, a credit card, and then I have to pay for the card, and then I have to pay for the trip, and then how much money do I need to put on that, and all those sorts of things. Well, now we can say, well, download the app, put the money on there, hook it into your wallet, and just be able to work on
it.
Exactly. And the nice thing about it is it's a virtual sort of situation. And for those of you who have been through an experience in your coffee house of choice with your mobile phone,
I was thinking about when you were describing.
You can think about that being the same sort of experience with our fare gates or with our bus.
Be sure to join us next time on the Business of Government Hour TV for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation exploring the intersection of government, technology, and leadership. Until then, it's businessofgovernment.org.